Their wedding was supposed to unite them, but instead, they were bound by a life sentence. The police in the USA couldn't find the murderers. An innocent conversation helped. He was one of the last nice guys on earth, recalled a classmate of David. Others jokingly called him Colonel Graham because he had dreamed of joining the military and becoming a pilot since childhood. Despite aiming high, he was brought down by the basest of motives. Wanting to prove his love to his girlfriend, he brutally killed the girl with whom he had cheated. The case might never have come to light if his beloved hadn't boasted about the crime they committed years later. Early in the morning on December 4, 1995, a Texas farmer driving along a rural road saw the body of a girl on the roadside. She was wearing flannel shorts and a gray school club t-shirt. Her face was so disfigured that she was unrecognizable. After a few hours, the police were able to identify the victim. It was Adrienne Jones, a high school student from the neighboring town of Mansfield. She was only 16 years old. The report indicated that Jones had injuries to her neck and chest, 2 gunshot wounds to her face, a broken left index finger, several abrasions and scratches, and a fractured skull. Adrienne grew up with 2 younger brothers, and her parents, Bill and Linda, ran their own equipment repair business. Adrienne was a popular girl, known in school as the life of the party, infectious, with her smile and optimism. She was also an excellent student, engaged in many sports, and interested in psychology. In her free time, she worked part-time as a waitress in a restaurant. On the evening of December 3, 1995, Adrienne returned home from work as usual. Around 10 p.m., the phone rang. She talked for quite a while, and after hanging up, she behaved in an unusual manner. This worried her mother, who tried to find out who she had been talking to. Adrienne replied that it was David, a boy from the school track team. "He's upset," she said. That evening, Adrienne's mother saw her daughter putting her shoes in the washing machine. The teenager declared that she would not go running. In the morning, Adrienne's alarm clock rang in her bedroom. Her mother entered the room and saw that her daughter was gone. She called the police. By then, the police had already found the girl, dead. The news of Adrienne's brutal murder shocked the residents of Mansfield. Rumors also spread throughout the school. Many of us had a strange feeling that the murderer was walking the halls with us, recalled April Grossman, a friend of the murdered girl. Detectives Dennis Clay and Dennis Meyer, along with their superior Brad Geary, were involved in the case. The first suspect was a student from Adrienne's school who had had legal trouble before. She had attacked a friend of the murdered girl a year earlier. However, after a polygraph test, the teenager was released as the police were convinced of her innocence. Adrienne's parents suspected her boyfriend, Tracy Smith. He also underwent a polygraph test which cleared him, but provided a new lead. He mentioned that Jones had told him a man named Brian called her on the fatal night. He didn't catch the last name because his parents were unhappy about him talking on the phone so late. Detectives speculated that it might be 17-year-old Brian McMillan, who worked at Eckerd's, where Adrienne had previously been employed. According to friends, Brian was infatuated with her. He told the police that he was drunk on the night of Adrienne's murder and didn't remember what happened. He added that he might have gone to her house but didn't recall doing so. Brian's friends assured the police he was with them that evening, and his parents said he spent the night at home. On December 15, 1995, Brian was arrested. He spent Christmas and New Year's in jail. After the holidays, a polygraph test confirmed his innocence and he was released. The investigation reached a dead end. Soon, the detectives turned their attention to another suspect, David Graham. David, 2 years older than Adrienne, was a senior in high school and lived with his father. Since the age of 7, he had dreamed of becoming an Air Force pilot and planned to attend a military academy after graduation. Classmates jokingly called him Colonel Graham. He had many friends and admirers. "He was one of the last nice guys on earth," said a classmate. David had a girlfriend, 17-year-old Diane Zamora, a student at a nearby high school in Crawley. Like David, she had good grades, was a member of the track team, and intended to join a military academy. Diane and David met for the first time in 1991 at a small airport where Civil Air Patrol, a civilian auxiliary of the Air Force, held classes. Diane was 13 at the time, the eldest of 4 siblings, and lived in a poor, religious family. Her father, Carlos, worked as an electrician, and her mother, Gloria, was a nurse. Sometimes, due to unpaid bills, they lacked electricity, and Diane had to do her homework by candlelight. Eventually, Carlos began cheating on his wife and left the family. Diane and David started dating in 1995, spending nearly all their free time together. They announced their engagement towards the end of high school and planned to marry after graduating from military academy. Their relationship was even featured in a local newspaper. Everything changed in late November 1995 when David went to a track meet in Lubbock, where Adrienne was also on the team. Adrienne was different from Diane, more outgoing and energetic, drawing attention. David later recounted that on the way back, Adrienne asked him for a ride home, and he agreed. Along the way, she insisted they detour. They stopped behind an elementary school and they had sex. David described the incident as meaningless and painful. He felt guilty and soon confessed to Diane. She was stunned and decided that the only way to save their relationship was to kill Adrienne. On December 3, 1995, David called Adrienne Jones and asked to meet her. Around midnight, he arrived at her house in a green Mazda Protégé borrowed from Diane's parents. When Jones got into Graham's car, he drove to Joe Pool Lake. Diane hid in the trunk throughout the ride. When the car stopped, Diane emerged from the trunk and began questioning Adrienne about her relationship with David. Diane then hit Adrienne several times in the head with a dumbbell handle. Despite the blows, Adrienne managed to escape through the car window and tried to flee. Graham chased her, carrying a gun. Adrienne didn't get far. According to Diane, Adrienne fell and didn't get up before David caught up with her. He checked her body and returned to the car, telling Diane that Adrienne was dead, but she didn't believe him. He went back and shot Adrienne twice in the face. "We shouldn't have done this, David," Diane said when he got back into the car. The couple then drove to a friend's house in nearby Burleson to get clean shorts for David. They disposed of their bloodied clothes in a trash bin near Diane's house. The next morning, David hid the gun and the dumbbell at his parents' house. In the summer of 1996, David Graham and Diane Zamora graduated from high school and enrolled in different military academies. Graham became a cadet at the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado, and Zamora joined the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis. Their long-distance relationship didn't last. At the Naval Academy, Diane befriended squad leader Jay Guild. According to Guild, Diane often thought about and missed David, but she gradually considered breaking up. She sent David a letter saying Jay had kissed her. When David learned about this, he tried to contact the Navy, accusing Jay of sexually harassing Diane. He also began threatening Jay. During the trial, Jay testified that Diane once told him David had killed a girl at her request. In late August 1997, Diane repeated this story to her roommates, Mandy Gotch and Jennifer McKerney. Initially disbelieving, they reported it to the Academy administration the next day. The Academy contacted the Dallas-Fort Worth Police Department to inquire if the case of a murdered teenage girl had been resolved. When the police said no, the Academy suspended Diane Zamora. During the investigation, Diane was supposed to stay in Texas, but she flew to Colorado to visit David after just a few days. She later claimed she offered to take part of the blame, believing that as a minor at the time of the murder, she would receive a lighter sentence. Investigators arrested David Graham. Initially, he denied any involvement in the murder, but during a polygraph test, he confessed and described the killing in detail. During a search of the Graham home, the police found the gun and the dumbbell in the attic. The police also arrested Diane Zamora. Her statements matched David's. During her trial, Diane claimed she had lied, but the jury didn't believe her. The police investigated the case for 9 months. One theory suggested that David invented the story about having sex with Adrienne to take part of the blame for a murder planned and executed by Diane. Later, Diane retracted her confession. In an extensive interview years later, she claimed she was innocent, saying she tried to dissuade David from committing the murder and that he acted alone, even refusing to help her clean the car of blood afterward. Diane's trial took place in February 1998. Linda Jones, Adrienne's mother, asked the court to exclude the death penalty in both cases. The jury sentenced Diane Zamora to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 40 years. David Graham received the same sentence on July 24, 1998.